Are you a small business owner struggling to nail down your brand voice? Have you hired copywriters only to discover they couldn't capture your messaging? If that sounds like you, then you need to download my free resource, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps. Once you complete these simple prompts, you will have a solid foundation for producing your business copy, whether you decide to write your own content or outsource it to a professional, like, say, me. As an added bonus, you'll be automatically subscribed to my email list, where you can learn more about my writing services and receive weekly updates about my podcast, Emotional Abuse is Real. Head over to the link in the show notes to grab Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps today. Trigger warning. This podcast episode features discussions of parental abuse, specifically emotional and physical abuse. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Emotional Abuse is Real. I'm your host, Serene Leeds. I'm a professional writer and storyteller, and I'm so glad you're here. On today's episode, I welcome a 26-year-old emotional abuse survivor named Lara, and she has an incredible story. Originally from Germany, Lara was raised in an ethnic Turkish household under an abusive mother. Due to the rules of her culture, Lara was forbidden to move out of her family's home until she got married. And when she turned 18, Lara realized that she was in an untenable situation. With zero family support and through the encouragement of her therapist, Lara escaped her childhood home and moved to France, where she now lives and works as a high school teacher. I am so excited for you to hear her inspirational story. But as always, before we get into the episode, I have a few quick announcements. Please make sure you're following me on Instagram and on Threads at Serene Leeds Writes. That's SareneLeedsWrites. I actually connected with today's guest, Lara, on Threads, so I highly recommend you come find me on that platform. Also, please make sure that you're subscribed to this podcast on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. And don't forget to support Emotional Abuse is Real by leaving a 5-star rating and by writing a review over on Apple Podcasts. I'd also like to remind you that Emotional Abuse is Real still has a Buy Me a Coffee page, and donations are always welcome. That's because this podcast is a one-woman operation, and your donations help support the podcast's production costs. Finally, I wanted to let you all know that I'm still looking to fill a couple more episode slots for December 2024. If you're interested in sharing your emotional abuse experience on this podcast, please either DM me on Instagram, email me at hello@sereneleadswrites.com, or fill out my quick and simple application form. I've left links to my Instagram, email, the show's application form, the Buy Me a Coffee page, and my free download, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps, in the show notes. Anyway, without further ado, here's my conversation with Lara.
So my abuse actually started when I was very little. I was around 8 or 9 years old when my mother, unfortunately, started first emotionally abusing me, and also continued with physical abuse. It would range from demeaning me, from withholding affection from me as a child if I did something that she didn't like, or if I got any bad grades in school. It was really for the smallest of reasons that I got abused for. And soon she also started the physical abuse, where I would unfortunately get hit a lot, and I would also have to go to doctors and hospitals. And an example is, for example, it just happened. When did it happen? A few years back. I was still living with my mother at that point. I wasn't allowed to leave because I'm from Turkish ethnicity, so the cultural rules play a huge role in my family.
Mhm.
And I wasn't allowed to leave until I actually got married, but
Mm.
I did it anyway. An example is, oh God, where do I start? It's whenever she would want something from me, for example, my car, as simple as that. She didn't have a car at that time, but I did, and I paid for it by myself, which is really important to mention. And
Mhm.
she would kind of demand the car from me. She would say, Lara, I need your car from you. I need to borrow it. And whenever I would say no, or I kind of would say, yeah, no, it's mine, you can't use it, she would get really mad. She would immediately start using my trigger words. For example, you're worthless, you're useless, you're a mistake. I did so much for you. I sacrificed a lot for you. And I mean, she would just really try and make me feel guilty. And then whenever I would cry or just react to her, to the trigger words she used, she would yell at me even more.
Mhm.
And the problem is, I told my family about this abuse. I told my grandmother, I told my aunts, my uncles. No one did anything, and they actually hid the abuse from everyone else. Like, no one
Mhm.
helped me. I had to get out of there by myself on my own,
Mhm.
actually. Um, Another really, like, important example is, it was 6 years ago. My uncle and his wife had just had a baby. They had lost the baby, actually. So I was
Mm.
over there. I was watching my cousins, and she was there as well. And suddenly she started looking at me weirdly, and just went, "Do you know why you're single? Why you have no friends?" And I was just sitting there completely, like, is this the right moment to talk about it? But I was like, no. She said,
Mhm. Mhm.
because you look like a monster. So she looked
So
at me.
sorry.
Thank you. She looked at me, her own daughter, and just
Yeah.
called me a monster and said no one would ever really love to get to know you. As soon as they did, they would run away from you. That's how horrible you are. And she started listing of things that were really wrong with me, in her opinion.
In
And
her, yeah, in her
that's,
opinion.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
in her opinion. They weren't really true. I mean, she listed off, for example, beauty standards, and she didn't even fit the role herself.
Just the fact that she's talking about beauty standards, it shouldn't even be, I mean, to me that's not relevant. You
Yeah.
know, it's not about what a person looks like, but I know that beauty standards are very important to certain people. So, yeah. I'm so sorry that you
Thank
went
you.
through all of that. Can you share the process of moving out and breaking away and what that was like for you?
The first step was actually when I hit age 18. As I told you
Mhm.
before, abuse started at 9 years old. And when I hit age 18, I started asking myself a lot of questions. I started thinking, like, this cannot be right.
Right.
A mother cannot treat a daughter like this. It's wrong. So I started doing some research. I got into therapy in secret. My family didn't know about it. And my therapist helped a huge deal, helped me a lot with realizing what was happening, with telling me that it wasn't actually my fault that I was being abused, and that the fault is actually with her, and everything she doesn't like about me, she doesn't like about herself. And I remember my
Yeah.
first therapy session, my therapist's first advice was to get out immediately. Start
Mhm.
planning your escape.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I graduated high school. I graduated college. I'm a teacher, actually.
Excellent.
Thank
What
you.
do you teach?
I teach history and chemistry in high
Excellent.
school.
Love it. That's great.
I started planning. I started sorting out my paperwork. Everything that I needed to do, I did. And all I told her, all I left her was a letter, and I explained, this is why I'm leaving you, and I'm not going to contact you again. I went completely no contact with her or any
Yeah.
member of my family,
Mhm.
and here I am.
Good for you. Good for you. Well done.
Thank you.
So it's been about 8 years since you
Yes.
did that? Okay. So who is your support system now?
My therapist, still. I have some other friends, they know about the abuse and they're my support system and they've been really great about this. But also, my sister is still in contact with me. I
Oh,
have a
that's wonderful.
19-year-old sister, and is also has been abused, but it's not my story to tell.
Of course. Of
I
course.
still help her out. I still call her. I'm still in contact with her. But the difference is that she doesn't really tell me about what the family has been saying about me or anything. So we just keep it strictly between us. And yeah, that's been my support system so far.
Okay. All right. Well, good, because I know how hard it is for a
Yes.
lot of people to go no contact with family. So you've had no contact with your mother for 8 years.
Yes, unfortunately.
It is unfortunate, but how are you feeling about that?
I feel a lot better. I feel
Good.
happier. I feel healthier. I don't really have that kind of darkness or dark cloud over my head. I don't really have that much anxiety, because whenever I used to be around her, I would feel really tense. I would go into survival mode. I
Yeah.
would look out for certain triggers. I would walk on eggshells around her. I would be careful what to share, what to say, how to interact with her, and I would just not feel like myself. I wasn't happy when I was with my mother. I wasn't, but it has changed a lot. And I have to say, in the beginning, it was really hard for me to go no contact, because, I mean, you're ripping away such a huge part of yourself, of your family
Of
immediately.
course. Of course. Of course.
But
Yeah.
I can say with my friends' help, my therapist's help, I have gone a long way.
I'm so happy to hear that. And I think that it's going to help a lot of people listening to know that sometimes no contact is the right solution, and that you can thrive
Always.
from going in
Of
that direction.
course, you
Yeah.
can't heal where you've been broken. I mean, my spirit was broken. My light was taken from me against my will. I wasn't happy there, and I want every victim to out there to know you're not alone. You're not suffering alone. The fault is not with you, and you can and will get out, and you'll be happy once you
Absolutely.
do.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you are sharing your experience with emotional abuse from a parent. You're not the first person to come on the podcast to share that, but I do feel that I like to have guests who share that particular kind of abuse so that we can raise awareness that it does exist.
It does.
And because understandably, a lot of people don't like to talk about it. So, in addition to therapy, I'd love to just know what else you've done to help on your healing journey.
Writing, actually. I've been writing. I
Excellent.
started writing after my first therapy session, because I had already been writing poetry, been writing stories, letters, anything really. And most of my stories or poems are about healing from whatever abuse my mother inflicted on me. And it really helps me, because I can control the narrative. I can control how the world is constructed. I'm in control. And I think that control feeling, knowing that you're in control, is something that brings me safety. It kind of regulates me in a way, because I used to feel out of control, not in control when I was with my mother. So that changed perspective really helped out a lot.
Hello, hello. My name is Sage, and I'm here with my good friend Emily to tell you all about an explosive new podcast called Watch Me Do It.
That's right. Sage and I are here for you from the west side of Los Angeles, where we dish out all of the tea about our real life dates, relationships, hookups, friendship breakups, careers, and more.
It's real, it's a bit raw, and completely unapologetic, all about being divorced and single in your 40s.
Dive in with us every Tuesday, where life gets delightfully real. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe and share now.
So I know that you have written a book. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share how people can get it. I mean, I know it's available in Europe. Is it possible? Because most of my listeners, I'm sure you can understand, are here in North America.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's available on Amazon.
Okay.
It's linked on my social media profiles. You can get it from there. I have to say, though, it's not really like a self-help book. It's kind of comprised of fantasy stories, elements mixed in or inspired from my own real life events, things that happened to me. But all my stories or poems, whatever it is in there, is always designed to have a secret message for my readers, whether it be empowering, whether it be acknowledging your inner child, or anything really. It's all about realizing how strong you are and how powerful you really are.
Yeah, definitely. That's wonderful. And it doesn't it does not have to be self-help. I'm sure whatever genre it is, I'm sure there are people out there who are going to benefit from that. When we finished, I'll give you an opportunity to share how people can connect with you. I know it's a broad question, but what have you learned from your experience?
Not to always accept, like, if someone is speaking to me full of hate speech, like negatively, I have learned to not always let it get to me, to kind of let it go, accept it as their opinion, their point of view, and move on. Also, to always remain positive, always believe in yourself. Because I mean, at the moment of abuse, you feel weak, you feel helpless, and that's the truth. Because I felt that way. I felt like that. I thought, okay, this is my life now. I'm never gonna get out. It's always gonna be like this, but it's not. Another thing I learned is it doesn't matter how many times you get shut down. There's always gonna be someone who'll be willing to help you. You just have to be brave enough, I think, to take the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of that bravery, one of the questions that I always like to ask my guests, because to be perfectly honest, it's not always easy to get guests on this podcast because I understand it is not easy to talk about these topics.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who might be listening, but is still possibly in the abusive relationship and doesn't know what is a good first step for them to take?
I think the first step would be to distance yourself a little from your abuser. You might still be in a situation, you might still be living with them. And I think the first step to always take is to kind of take a mental distance, to really distinguish between their opinions and their voice in your head and your own voice. I think that's the most difficult step to take. To this day, I have to admit it, I still sometimes hear my mother's voice.
Sure. I understand that. Yeah.
Her negative voice is I have to work on it, yes. But I think it's a good first step to take, to kind of distance yourself mentally and to put as much distance physically as possible and to start really planning your escape.
So I should have asked you this earlier. When you moved out, is it something that you had to do secretly?
Yes.
Or okay.
No one.
What was that? I'd love to hear, just so people can understand what it's like for certain survivors. What was that like for you?
I was actually, I reached out first. I told my grandma, because she's the one who knows most about my abuse, about what my mother has been doing to me. So I thought, I could tell her, and I would. She witnessed some of the abuse actually happening to me, but because of the cultural views she has, she dismissed it really immediately. And she said, until you get married, you can leave. You'll be saved by your husband. No. No.
I understand that that's a cultural attitude in a lot of cultures. But no.
Immediately I realized, no, I will not wait for a husband. I will not wait for any kind of situation. I asked her, what if I would live nearby by myself. I wouldn't be doing anything. I would just be safe. And she immediately shut it down. So that's the moment I thought, okay, I have to do this in secret. And I did.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah.
person who truly knew about it was my therapist.
Yeah.
I planned in secret. I told no one where I was going, when I was going to leave. I just gave a letter to my mom explaining that I left, that I'm not going to see her again. And unfortunately, my family is kind of the crazy kind. So I also had to go to the police and give them a copy of the letter before I left. So they would not follow me to the airport and just, call the cops on me or anything. You just follow me in general. I planned and did everything in secret.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just the fact that you did it all by yourself. I mean, yes, your therapist was emotional support, but that's incredible. And so your family, you're in two separate countries now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. It's an incredible story and it needs to be told. So thank you for doing that, because I know you're not alone. I know you are not the first person who has had to do something like this.
Fortunately not, no.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people out there who are still not even able to do what you've done. So
it wasn't easy.
No, of course not.
Easy.
No.
It's not going to be easy to think really that far back, to accept that it's not your fault, that it's the abuser's fault, and that emotional abuse is real abuse, and narcissistic abuse is real abuse. I mean, my kind of abuse was really a mix of everything. I mean, physical abuse, starting out since I was a child. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on here, to talk about specific things.
You can. Absolutely. No, it's totally fine. I like to talk about emotional abuse as a gateway to physical abuse. No, please.
One prominent example was when I was 17. I was in high school, and by then my mom had already like abused me a lot. So I knew that she would be triggered easily by the tiniest of things.
Yeah.
It was in high school, and we had to do a project in what was it? Biology, I think. And we had to pick a group partner, project partner. And I knew my mom didn't like anyone in my class. They were either insufficient, lazy, dumb, stupid. She would prefer I do the project alone.
And then she wonders why you didn't have any friends.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's that. She never liked any of the people I got to know. I never accepted anyone I chose, ever. And then she would say, you have no friends, you should go out more. I didn't even know it. I mean, I couldn't really tell back then to her face, if you never like anyone. You don't even allow me to go out immediately. I had to kind of schedule times for her and kind of, okay, back to topic.
Of course, it's all right.
I had to pick a partner, but I thought if I didn't pick it and my teacher was the one to pick it, I would not get in trouble for this. I thought, So I told my teacher, could you please pick my partner for me? And as soon as my mother found out, as soon as I got home, as soon as I told her about the news that I had to do a project with a partner, I wasn't allowed to do it by myself. I nearly cried in front of the teacher to allow her to do it by myself, but she didn't. She didn't really understand, why is this girl so adamant about doing this herself?
Yeah.
And she dragged me in to the house by my hair. Neighbors saw it. I remember seeing a neighbor's face, and my hair was disheveled. She had been pulling on my ponytail and dragged me inside. She started immediately punching me, beating me, trying to strangle me. And all I remember in that moment was a mantra I had in my head. Please stop beating me. Please stop this. It's hurting. Please, please, please. She didn't listen until she saw my face bleeding. That's when she realized, oh God, what have I done?
Right.
And I was so gone, so deep in my head, that I was holding a towel to my face and just sitting there, please stop, until My father came home and he stood there and asked, what happened? Why did you do this? And she said, yeah, because she lied to me. She deliberately picked a project partner she knew I would disapprove of. And she tried to make me angry on purpose. So my dad thought to call my teacher. They called my teacher and they had the phone on speaker, so I would listen to my shame. And fortunately for me, the teacher told them that she picked the partner, that it wasn't me.
Yeah.
That's when it all went downhill. She yelled. She immediately screamed. She said, I'm going to go hand myself into the police. Oh, what did I do? Oh, goodness. She had a moment of awareness where she saw a young girl sitting there bleeding, a towel holding her face. And yeah, I wasn't allowed to go to school for 3 days because my face was injured. So she didn't really want me to go anywhere. She didn't want the teachers to ask any questions.
Yeah.
But I did go to the hospital because my nose was bleeding too much and it wouldn't stop. She would accompany me into the doctor's office. She did not allow me to go in by myself. She did not allow me to speak for myself. And yeah, she stood there, and every time I did or said something wrong, she would pinch me to remind me, okay, I'm standing right next to you. I'm listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I remember the doctor asking me, what happened to you? Why is your nose bleeding? What's the reason for all this injury? And I said, I ran into a door. I didn't see the door. And the doctor kind of looked at me funny. He was like, it must have been an interesting door.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he did see my mom's face. The way she looked, she was tense. She was looking around like all panicked. But the doctor didn't do anything. Like none of my teachers did anything. None of the doctors I went to for my injuries did anything. Not even my own family did anything. My father also did nothing. He enabled the abuse that my mom did.
Yeah.
My mom has kind of these old Turkish values, rules where it's okay to beat your children. It's not. It's not okay in any religion, no matter what religion it is. It's not okay to beat your children. There's a difference
it is not.
between culture and religion.
Absolutely.
And I have to say, I'm a practicing Muslim. Islam, Turkish, kind of explains itself. But even the religion itself says you're not allowed to beat your children. You're not. I mean, every religion out there, be it Judaism, be it Christianity, be it Buddhism, be it anything else, preaches kindness and mercy, especially towards your own children. And my mother would also, unfortunately, twist the rules of religion, twist anything that's taught, and kind of use religious rules to twist it and then to make me do her bidding. She would say, yes, but your religion says you're supposed to treat your mother like, paradise lies under the feet of the mother. And it's true. It's true. But there's also rules for the mom. You're not allowed to mistreat your children in any way because in any religion, children are a gift from God.
Yes.
You're not allowed to mistreat them, but she would still do that. She would emotionally abuse me, belittle me, and physically abuse me, and then say, yeah, but religion says this. No.
Oh, she is certainly not the first person to use religion and twist it around for her own benefit.
I swore to myself the day I went to the airport, I would never set a foot back in Germany again.
I'm just so blown away by your bravery.
Thank you.
I want you to know. You're welcome. I just want you to know that. So, is there anything else that you want my listeners to know?
Get help immediately. I mean, as soon as you start to question yourself, question your situation, whether it be a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a mom, a dad, anyone else, a boss, no matter who it is, if you start to question yourself and say, okay, this cannot be right. Can it be? Or is this normal? Take that as a hint. That's a red flag.
Yep.
Immediately kind of get help from a therapist, start doing your research, whatever it is. You just have to get away immediately. I mean, it might seem like a huge step at first. In the first years of planning my own escape,
Yep.
it seemed like a really huge plan for me. I mean, it's big. Here you are, having never lived
Huge.
alone before, and you're kind of planning to move to a different country, planning a different life. That's huge. It's big. But take it step by step. Start planning the little things first, maybe your paperwork, maybe saving up a little, doing anything else. But if you start questioning anything that's happening to you, take that as a hint.
Mm-hmm. Trust your gut.
Immediately, yes.
Yeah.
One thing I learned was, was to always
No. Please.
trust
No, it's all right.
yourself, trust your intuition, trust your gut.
How did you like living alone for the first time?
I remember crying a lot.
Sure, of course.
I would sit, I didn't really go out anywhere the first few months. I had to kind of heal first from everything that had happened to me, from having to constantly be in survival mode to suddenly it be quiet. I mean, my mom wasn't around anymore, and she was the only sole factor for my depression, for my anxiety, for my PTSD, for my any other, I mean, migraines. I had a lot of health issues when I used to live with her.
Yeah.
And I remember I just cried a lot. I didn't really go out anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I had to realize my new situation first. I mean,
Yeah.
but then I gradually took a few days where I would go out for a few minutes, for a few hours, and I would start to feel better. I started to realize, okay, this is what happiness feels like. You're free. You get to do whatever you want. You get to meet whoever you want. You get to have friends. You get to have genuine will to live. You found that spark inside yourself again. I mean, it's going to be difficult. The first few months when you live alone, it's going to be difficult. You're going to cry. You're going to break down, but give yourself grace.
Yes. The loneliness will be there, but you will get past it.
Yes, of course.
How can my listeners connect with you?
I'm on Instagram and I'm on Threads.
Yes, Threads. That's how I know that's how you and I connected. Okay, so is it all right if I share your Instagram and Threads link?
Of course.
Okay, so I'll do that in the show notes. And Lara, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I know it's going to help so many people.
Thank you so much. I mean, you're doing a great thing, just
Thank
allowing
you.
people to tell their story, allowing people to listen from anywhere. I mean, you mainly have an American audience, and
I do.
Here I am from Germany.
I'm so grateful that you found me. It's true. I know that I have listeners all over the world, but it's true. The majority of my listeners are in the United States and Canada, and some in Britain. But I'm so glad that you found me. I'm so glad that we've connected, and I just want to say bravo to you, to everything that you've done to help yourself. And you are definitely an inspiration to my listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Lara on Emotional Abuse is Real. If you would like to connect with Lara, I've left links to her social media in the show notes. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please reach out via email at hello@sereneleadsrights.com, through Instagram @sereneleadsrights, or fill out my guest application form. Please note that this podcast should not be used as a substitute for professional mental health services. If you are a victim of emotional abuse and need help, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Hotline at 988. Or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also text START, START, to 88788. Once again, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Follow me on Instagram and on Threads. Consider buying me a coffee and go grab my free download, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.